Hello, and welcome to Awaken, where we share insights to the connection between science and spirituality for self-discovery, joy, and freedom. I am your host and spiritual coach, Stephanie Rouch, and I am so pleased to be here with my favorite person, Byron Nash. Byron is a musician. He is the founder and CEO of DUYA Wellness. DUYA stands for Don't Underestimate Your Ability, and we'll be getting into that. And his life is really a testament to the power of belief, resilience, and transformation. From becoming a single dad at 18 to building a career as a musician and functional fitness coach, Byron has truly combined his personal experiences and intuitive insights to help others realize their potential. Through DUYA, he empowers people to bridge the gap between where they are and who they want to be through using tools like functional fitness, mindset shifts, and attention. And he is a multidimensional, multi-talented person who, fun fact, has created the music that you are hearing throughout this Awaken series. So Byron, thank you on many fronts for being in my life, for creating this music, and for sharing your tools, your mindset tools with us today.
Thanks for having me. Thank you. You're welcome.
Great. So tell us about you, the fact that you were a single dad at 18 and were kind of thrust into adulthood and had to learn a lot of tools on your own. Can you just share a little bit of that background with us and why that's significant?
Sure. That's sort of the foundation for everything that made me the person that I am today. So becoming a single parent early in the 90s of all things was exceptionally challenging. My background, home life was disheveled, if you will. And so I really had to find my way, and I didn't have much guidance in doing that. So without really knowing it, I had to learn how to trust my instincts. I had to make a lot of mistakes. And I also had to decide what type of life I wanted for my son, which ultimately was what type of life do I want for myself because I was his caregiver. So that sort of was the beginning of all of this. It was kind of a hopeless situation. It was dire, but I'm really grateful for it because it gave me the insight to my own strength.
Fabulous. And something I've heard you say a lot that I want to emphasize for this audience because I think it's so powerful. Really, anytime we're living in, we need to remember that we can come back to resilience and back to our own power, but especially right now in 2025. And
Yeah.
I've heard you say a number of times that you had moments when you were young, when you were a young dad, of feeling like, I don't want to be a statistic. And I would love for you to unpack for the audience what that meant for you and what sharing that story can mean for others.
And at that time, it was looking pretty bad for young African American males. A lot of them were going to jail. People were involved in drugs. Just the overall view of us wasn't good. And I was different in the sense that, yes, I was African American male, but my interests were in really creative other spaces with music and skateboarding. But a lot of it was considered like white culture. So I kind of was in this weird place of not fitting in on the black side, not really fitting in on the other side culturally, and always kind of not belonging. And I was seeing like people were getting shot and people were getting killed, and just the way that we were being sort of shown, I didn't want to be that. But then what ended up happening is I become a single dad, and I'm like, I'm right there in that category because there was so much teenage pregnancy going on. But what made me different was I was a single parent, like as a male. You didn't really see that back then at all. I mean, even to this day, people are like, you have a kid? So back then it really stood out because unfortunately the stigma on Black men was that we didn't take care of our kids and that there were absent fathers. And there was a lot of that, but it wasn't all of us, it wasn't the entire race. So that there was a lot of that to shake. And I just remember being in these sort of like prerequisite classes to get my GED because I dropped out of school. And it was like right when computers were coming in and, kind of replacing people who had worked at jobs for a long time and then they didn't have to have those skills, that I remember being like looking over in the same class with some guy in his 40s or something, knowing that I was understanding what was going on, but I didn't want to be in that position where I had to rely on something that could be taken away from me. So it was a combination of being a young black male, poverty, not wanting to be, be poor, and not wanting to be on welfare, not relying on these government agencies or any of that stuff. So that's sort of where that energy came from. Just I had to find my own way because I don't want to end up what they think I'm going to end up as.
That is so important. And for a lot of us, we unintentionally step into the stories or the scripts that we've been given about who society thinks we are or who we think we're supposed to be. So, how do you reconcile that with yourself? And like what are tangible ways that people who are watching this and who are inspired and want to change that perception of who they think they're supposed to be? Like how do you do that?
Well, I always take it back to like a book or a movie. They say life is like a movie. In a way, it is, in the sense that most movies don't have all the characters all the way through. And there's different scenes. There's a sad scene, there's a happy scene, there's a violent scene, there's a, deep emotional scene. And I kind of think of life that way. So just because I was living in this story, in this chapter of the book, doesn't mean this part has to stay the same way. And I think we really struggle with letting go because we're getting all this information put on us that maybe it was our mom's trauma, or maybe it was family trauma passed down. Maybe it's what, is being fed to us about our own identity, because there's some of that that plays a role too, of not believing in yourself, not thinking that you're enough. You're only seeing your culture struggle because that's the world that you're in. So there's so many things you have to fight through, but I believe that like I have control over that. So I don't care what they think about me. I'm gonna walk my own path. I'm gonna kind of cut, with a machete through the muck, and it's up to me to live the life that I want. But you have to get to that point where you say, this isn't okay. I want it to be this way. Who do I have to be to become that?
Mm. Mm. Great question to ask yourself. And that really leads us into talking more about your business. You have this business. Don't underestimate your ability. Do your wellness.
Mhm.
Tell us about what the vision and what the intention is for this business.
The intention, well, the origin of it was coming out of 2020. I was already, into fitness with CrossFit and everything. Became a coach. Wasn't really coaching yet. It just was. I had the license, and then as I was moving out of one industry, which was service industry, it just wasn't serving me anymore. It was hurting my health. I wasn't sleeping and all those things. That it was almost like, well, what am I going to do? And my goal was to get out of the industry by 21, like July of 2021, but I got laid off in November of 2020. So it sort of forced me, it's something I was manifesting that I wanted. It just, they say you never know when. It just happened to come earlier. So I just leaned in on that because I wasn't sure that I wanted to be a personal trainer as much as I was really passionate about helping people elevate. So through fitness is kind of where those two worlds come together, because I didn't see me as like sort of this life coach person, even though people were coming to me naturally for this type of advice and they kind of thought I had it together all the time, even when I didn't. And so I'm like, well, if I can bring those worlds together, because I know for me, I didn't start working out till 40, and people just assume that I have my whole life. But in that working out, there were so many things that I was confronted with, like, can I do it? This is really hard. That, I failed a lift. I was the last one in the workout. These little things that transferred over into real life things. And I was finding a way to connect those, because you have to believe in yourself and you have to get up another day when you don't feel like it. And you should push a little bit more, and you should raise your own bar, even if you don't hit it by raising it. What if this is where you were trying to be, but if you raise the bar and you don't really hit this, but you still surpass where you would have been if you didn't try, So I think combining that and then sharing that with other people and then helping them get in shape. And it was also like a timing thing. A lot of people gained weight, a lot of people were depressed. Originally, my first client base was almost all service industry people, because they were really impacted by that. And I knew that like not having that tangible thing where they're working and helping people, losing that social component was really hard for a lot of people in the industry. So I gave them 50% off. You work with me, I'll get you in shape. And then the word spread. So I was using like social equity meets like I barely promoted it. All of a sudden I was like full-time trainer. So my goal is to really help people see the best version of themselves. And my son Tommy, he's the one that actually came up with DUYA, don't underestimate your ability, because he said, Dad, that's kind of how you live. And you know, when someone tells me I can't, it really makes me believe even more that I can. But then I also have to believe that for myself. I don't need an outside source to challenge that. And I think I need that. I wanted to be able to help people with that when they don't think they can do something or when they can't see the greatness in themselves, to kind of just be the mirror and just hold it to them like, no, no, you did that. I didn't do it. I was just like your little cheerleader on the side, but you already have that in you. So my goal is to spread that with the world.
Fantastic. And the way that you coach reminds me so much of meditation practices that I've engaged in for myself, where the goal is getting to that state of boredom or discomfort, where then you're able to confront the part of yourself that is maybe like needs to be addressed before growth.
Yeah.
And you really take that approach with fitness as well. So, what do you find when you're training your clients and helping them push past that discomfort, not to a point of injury, but really to a point of you're in that mental challenge of needing to decide who you're going to be? What have you seen happen with clients when you go through that process?
It becomes less about the physical part, even though that's sort of the hump, that's the fire they're in at the moment, like, oh God, this is so hard. But it's really about finding out who they are. And instead of like, I'm not the type of coach who's like, do it like this, it's more of a supportive thing. So even if people are like, this is so hard, I'm like, you can do this, you can hang in there. They just need to see what that is for them. And so when you're under that duress and something's really challenging and you're out of breath and you don't know if you can lift your arms one more time, but you do, and you get back up and you're sweating and you're panting and the breathing's all out of sync. And then bringing some of the breathing components into it, like take a moment, focus on the wall, get your breathing, get everything to align, get your breathing in conjunction with your body. And then you start to feel your mind kind of shift into it. Because I find that most of my clients, while I kick their butt in fitness, they really do rely on the support and conversation. There's like a lot of life coaching things that kind of naturally are integrated. So I think that's really what it is. It's less about how heavy can you lift and how fast can you run, and more about who do you want to be in this moment? You chose to come here. It's 5:30 in the morning or like whatever time you chose this hour to try to be better. Let's make the most of it. And I use time intervals a lot. So when there's challenges that just feel terrible, but I'm like, that was only 3 minutes of work. So then all of a sudden you can compare it to these other things where like, oh, work is really getting on my nerves. We don't need to give it that much power. So I find that like when people are challenged in these physical states, it really helps their mental state, which then translates into the other spaces in their lives.
Absolutely. So it sounds really like a time to apply a lot of the life coaching principles that, are logical and sound really easy
Mm.
when we're in a relaxed, happy, neutral, calm state. Things like really choosing to be your best self or taking the high road, or what are some other types of examples you would give that you get to help guide people through in that moment of application?
I think it's more about who do you want to be? We all have this parallel universe version of ourselves, and that can just be who we imagine we want it to be. We all were dreamers as kids. I want to be a rock star. I want to go to the moon. Right? Don't let that die. And so maybe that thing isn't what we're trying to achieve, but that person, we can still get there. And so I really want to show people, like, again, it's a mirror, it's just flipping it around in these regular practical ways that are in everyday life that you can really elevate yourself. And then all of a sudden you're walking around a little bit more confident and for yourself. And when you can get to the point that you're like pleasing yourself and that you're proud of yourself and that you can look in the mirror with pride and you can look yourself in the eyes and feel good about that, everything else starts to fall into place. And then things that are still challenging, life is challenging. There's going to be challenges, but they don't hit you the same way, or you navigate around them a little better. I was talking about challenges in life, discomfort with a guy last night, and I said it's kind of like that energy when you're walking through water, and not splashing, not trying to swim, just walking, and you're pushing water. You can feel the weight of it, but it calmly moves, and you feel heavy, but you also feel light. And so I think a lot of that is being grounded in yourself so that you can kind of navigate. It's like, oh, there's a problem. Let me kind of push that over here. And after I deal with it, the water's still there. It's all still around you, but you're still making your way through it. So that was sort of like an analogy that kind of came out of a random conversation that I'm going to start to apply and share with people even more.
Mm, great. And then in terms of other mindset principles, can you speak to the importance of gratitude as a mindset?
Yeah. I mean, we hear the word a lot. It's kind of a buzzword. It's been a buzzword for about 5, 6 years now. But I think there's confusion because people are like, oh, I'm grateful for my house. I'm grateful for my family. Yeah, that is it. But really, it's the connector of the energy between the thing that you really desire and want versus like looking at it as this thing that's far away from you, like, oh, I want this life. I want to be happy. I want love. But if you can't recognize the love that's in your life somewhere right now, whether that's love for yourself, love for your job, kids, whatever it is, energy wise, you're not going to be able to attract more of it. So it's less about looking for what's out there and really appreciating what's here. And you can be in a bad situation and still have gratitude, right? Like, and it's hard to recognize. It's not easy. I've been in dark places where I was like, everything's happening to me. Oh, it's so bad. And then the more I focused on how bad it was, the worse it got. And then when I started to crawl out of that hole a bit and realize like, dude, you have a place to live. Yeah, maybe your money got a little disheveled because your job burned up, but like you're still alive. You get another day to do it. Your son's doing well. You have your family. You have these opportunities and you've done a lot. Don't lose sight of that because of what you don't have. So I think gratitude is the grounding thing to let you know where you are, but then also be like, there's other things I want to do with my life and there's other things I want to bring into it, but I'm really happy that I have what I have now too.
Mm. So it's really getting into that state of recognizing what is going right in my life? What do I already have that I'm giving attention to so
Yeah.
that I can open up to continue to receive that?
hmm And it does bring more into your life. It's an energy thing, right? So if we're trying to attract abundance into our lives, but we're living completely in scarcity, it's not really going to come. Or if it does come, it probably won't stay because you're not going to appreciate it because you're not having gratitude for it when it's there, right? So whatever that abundance is, or whatever that thing is that we have currently that we should have gratitude for, it probably wasn't there and came into your life. And now you're looking at it like it doesn't matter because you're looking for the next thing. But there might have been a point where that wasn't there at all. So don't lose sight of it because it aged or because it's old or it's been a few years or you got used to it. It's like having a new car. You're really excited for the first however long, and then you just have a car. And then it's right back to complaining about driving. And they're so expensive and it's all this. And it's like, do you remember when you didn't have a car? Do you remember when you were busing and it took an hour and a half to get anywhere? So it's like we have to have these constant reminders to stay grounded in our gratitude to bring more in because the universe is going to say, oh, you recognize what you got? Here's a little more.
Yeah,
hmm
great, great. And another thing that you talk about quite a bit is shifting this question. You started to touch on it from life, why is life happening to me in this way, to
hmm
making the internal shift to asking yourself, how is life happening for me? And can you speak to the importance of that shift?
It's a really challenging shift, so I don't want to put it out there like it's just a breeze and you ask the question and everything kind of gets light and fluffy. It's not like that. What it is, it's how how willing are you to get to the truth of who you are? Because sometimes this answer is a little ugly, right? And that's okay. But the reason why we kind of put the blinders on and we just kind of go through life and ignore things and then it kind of piles up is because some of those answers aren't really that great, right? So it's like, who do I want to be? And if my situation is bad, I still chose it. Yeah, I can't control if someone did something to me per se, right? And maybe they did, but did I bring them into my life? Did I have control over it? Did I allow them to stay in my world longer? Did that happen to me so I can say, I don't really want that in my life anymore? And then there's a lesson there. So you have to choose. I felt like, oh my God, I'm a single parent. All my friends are going to college. Everyone feels sorry for me. I felt sorry for me. My mom was on drugs. It was a hot mess, and it felt like it was happening to me. It really did, like it was very desolate. And the challenge is when you can't see out of what your world is, it is hard to know what that is. So that's why I don't want people to think that I'm saying that's easy. It's not. But there was a point where I had a shift, even at 18, 19, where I'm like, well, you know what? My mom's addiction is exactly why this kid will not grow up in that. So it happened for me. It saved his life. It saved my life. It made me take a different path. I'm like, oh, addiction's over there. I don't really want to mess with that. Oh, is there drama there? Not really my speed, but I had to live it. So it happened to me so it wouldn't be a part of my life. What if that wasn't a part of my life and all of those things could have entered into it later? We don't know, right? So I think it's really about what do you really want? And are you willing to answer real questions with yourself? Because sometimes things happen to you because you did it. You know what I mean? Like we brought that on. So yeah, it is happening to you, still happening for you because there's a lesson to be learned on why that's happening. So we have to decide, are we ready to handle that truth and then change the question? Why is this happening for me? Why did I lose my job? Was I not being the best version of myself? I mean, I John's really not that nice, and maybe he helped get me fired, but was there something I wasn't doing that I could do better, or was I just not a good fit? And thank God I'm not there putting energy into that. That was a blessing in disguise. Now let me go put my energy over here. Was I feeling oppression and pressure from this job and I didn't know what I wanted to do, and then not taking the steps to change my life? That's happening for you, but you have to start practicing viewing things that way and asking those questions. They're hard.
Right. So, given this theme of that you talk about with DUYA
Mhm.
of really not underestimating what you're capable of and shifting this mindset into life is happening for me, even if it's in a small way, for people that want to access that but are still feeling kind of stuck, how can they start?
I think you have to start with yourself and start asking those questions. And then you got to look around and say, am I around people that make me feel bad and I don't even know it? You know what I mean? Are the people in my circle encouraging? Are they supportive? Do they recognize my greatness? Do I start to win? And then the people I thought were there for me kind of get nervous about me winning. It's partly environment, but it's also internal. So I think it's just, do you want to make changes in your life? Where do you start? You start with yourself. That's going to change everything on the outside. But sometimes we won't see it because, you're like, oh, I really have this goal. And your friend goes, yeah, I don't know, man. Right there, you should be like, okay, I got to keep an eye on this person and create some distance because you need that clarity to be able to answer your own questions. Because people who aren't trying to win don't necessarily want to see you win. So, like, as you're trying to grow, you have to decide what is the best version of myself, even if it just sounds ridiculous, and then start living in alignment with what that person would do.
Another question related to that is, how do you balance? You started talking about this earlier, having a really big goal that is a stretch goal and may be beyond what you know you're capable of. How do you balance setting those massive goals for yourself with not getting overwhelmed and with still then being able to take the small baby step actions every day?
I think it's look at what the goal is and then look at it from all the angles. the finished version, you don't know how you're going to get there. If it's, oh, I need this much money, I've never started a business, whatever it is, here's the goal, here's where you are. What are those things? So they say a lot of the times try to reverse engineer. So if you want to make a certain amount of money, maybe you could easily do that because of who you are, but you're thinking you need a job to do it versus maybe I go meet a video person and they film me and I start a YouTube channel, right? Like in this era, we're seeing all these different ways to be able to grow and reach these goals. But I think you have to look at it and look at how you handle goals, right? Like, do you complete things? Well, maybe the big goal is not the weight. Maybe it's a smaller goal now to start practicing completing what you said you were going to do. Because the confidence really comes from waking up every day and doing what we told ourselves we were going to do. So I don't think any goal is unreachable, even if it's massive. I think it's finding those small steps that lead you to the next step where you feel like you're a little closer, but then you're actually a new version of yourself on that next tier. So it's practicing really accountability to yourself and following through with things. And then maybe by the time you get even close to that goal, it's a totally different goal. It's a totally different path. Maybe in the journey to it, you discover a new way. I wanted to do this thing. I'm over here doing something completely different. I didn't even know that was a goal. Now I have a totally new trajectory of what I think I'm capable of because I went that way. I was going this way, but something changed the path in the road, and then I had to grow from that. So I think it's possible for everybody, but we have to be realistic about, do we follow through, to ourselves. If you tell yourself you're going to get up, did you get up? If you were going to mail that email and cold call that person, did you do it? Then if you didn't, why didn't you do it? And then you start with that small question. Why didn't I do it? Was I scared? Was I nervous? Am I afraid of rejection? And start unraveling all of that stuff. So
Great. So I so appreciate everything you've shared that's really blending so much mindset with fitness and with actionable ways that people can transform. And I'm wondering, can you give your top takeaways that you want people to walk away from with this interview?
um, love yourself. Start there, because you're not going to be able to really give it if you don't love yourself. You're not going to be able to receive it. And that will create the clarity. I don't think and for the move your body part, whatever works best for you. Like I don't think everyone should do CrossFit. I don't think everyone should run marathons, but you should find what's best for you because the better you feel, the more clarity just off of the chemicals on how your body's rolling, you'll have. You'll have more energy to go after the goal. You'll wake up feeling better. I know when I was working a lot and not getting a lot of sleep, I was really grinding, like pushing through. Now I'm accomplishing more without less energy, but I have a lot more energy because I take better care of myself now. So I think moving and kind of having those things synchronize really helps you say, oh, I want to do this. I have the energy to do it. I have ideas now because I'm getting sleep. I'm not foggy. So I think taking care of ourselves is really important. And then it's really trusting in what you want to do. Try something and don't be afraid of failure. Failure is nothing but another lesson in the journey that's awesome. So my biggest failures are the things where the biggest shifts happened.
Great, great. And this concept of love yourself, it's so important because what if the reason that we're grinding and don't have energy is like, well, I don't think I'm good enough, so I have to outwork or outrun this feeling. And I I'm so appreciative of how grounded your message is of really love yourself, don't underestimate yourself, and still take action and still go for it. So you really balance both of these things.
They all start to work together. It's kind of like functional fitness. It's not like, oh, it's leg day, it's arm day, it's not that. It's like, how do I make my legs and my shoulders and my elbows and my spine and my core all work together? So it's very functional in my life, right? So, just getting up takes the whole body to do it, but we take it for granted until you can't get up and that's really hard and your body doesn't work anymore. So it's really about keeping everything working as one. and they all lean off of each other. So it's not like just go work out and everything's going to turn out great. That's not true. You can work out, but like work out with the goal to be in conjunction with what you're doing with your mind and what you're doing with your spirit. And then I think it all really starts to like meld that you're not even trying. So it's not a grind anymore. It's just how you live.
Great. And for people who want to stay connected with you and want to work with you, how can they find you?
Right now, the best way would be through Facebook, DUYA Wellness, or Instagram, DUYA_wellness. And then I'll be starting a YouTube channel and a newsletter to kind of give these weekly insights. But right now, you'll see me like lifting weights on there and kind of just showing the daily regimen and the different things and some inspirational quotes and things like that.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Byron Nash, for sharing your positive energy and your message with
My pleasure.
Awaken. Thank you for tuning in to this amazing interview as part of our Awaken series. I hope you found value. Check out the rest of the interviews on Awaken. Keep tuning in and please subscribe to Paradigm Expansions to stay in touch, where we are doing more events like this. And we are all about dropping in to your heart, to your true self, to really, truly love your life. Thank you for joining. See you on the next video.